But just starting off with Dame and this whole situation of him kind of wanting out of Portland, then sort of reneging, and then Portland kind of showing him the door, say, hey, you're not going to come back. Dame in a way is trying to mold himself around this branding that he's actually crafted the past couple years, where he's the loyal guy. He's on the grind. He's not skipping the grind like he likes to say. But unfortunately, Portland, they're way overdue for a rebuild. And when you look at Damian Lillard's salary, mixed in with a few other players before they made the trade, this team was almost close to the luxury tax line. They weren't quite there, but they were almost there without even adding new pieces to the team besides the young players. So they were in a tricky spot. But unfortunate for Dame, I think he overestimated his loyalty. Because just like most of you fellas, wherever you work at, corporation or wherever you're at, their only loyalty is when they pay you the salary that they said that they were going to pay you. That's on their end. I understand that there's a loyalty sometimes in other places, but their main loyalty is that they paid you the proper way. And Dame has been well compensated throughout his time in Portland. So on his way out, of course, Joe Cronin is going to make sure that the Portland Trailblazers could secure enough assets for Dame. And Miami looks like they didn't have quite the package. So things kind of look like they kind of fell out. We're going to go over the timeline here. But let's take a look at what Damian Lillard said when he spoke to Bleacher Report. And I'm going to refer to the chat GBT to sort of begin to tell this story.
Lillard was speechless. A few minutes later, he briefly explained what he was feeling. I'm just letting it sink in, Lillard told Bleacher Report minutes after news broke that he was going to be a member of the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm just trying to process it all. It's a lot to think about. Never been in this situation before. How this summer played out behind the scenes definitely left a sour taste in my mouth, Lillard told Bleacher Report. But it doesn't change the amazing experiences I've had with the Trailblazers and this city. I'll always cherish this place. This is my home. I'll always live here regardless. Lillard then said if a deal couldn't be worked out with the Heat, he would prefer to rescind his trade request and return to the Trailblazers. Cronin's response to the seven-time All-Star was that there was no coming back. Lillard was shocked, sources said. He said it was discouraging to hear he couldn't return, but added that he didn't want to be somewhere if he wasn't wanted, and he ended the meeting.
Now, right there, I'm not shocked that Dame was told this. Like I said, Dame has kind of stayed on brand with being the loyal company guy, trying to, not escape the grind. And it seems like Dame, upon his exit, he tried to be the good guy at the same time. The Blazers GM, he's trying to keep his job. So Dame leaving doesn't really give him much job security. So he has to ensure for the future the Blazers have enough. So he doesn't care about Dame trying to look like the good guy while leaving. Eventually, there's some sort of miscommunication there because Dame is trying to keep up with his brand while at the same time trying to make the best possible moves for himself. And the Blazers GM, he's trying to keep his job for the future as he's going to begin a rebuild. So he needs to extract the most for Dame. The way Joe Cronin executed this trade was perfect. He flipped Dame. He got rid of other salary that was on the books. Keep making sure that the Blazers have enough space not to be next to the luxury tax line, especially with that large salary Dame had. And then the Blazers also got rid of their center, which was he wasn't taking that much salary, but he was biting in there. And at the same time, they could focus on their new draft pick, Scoot Henderson. But it's looking like Portland, since the end of last season, already had plans in the work of just rebuilding. Because remember, at the end of last season, they asked Dame to sit out, where they went 1-9, and then they finished with a higher draft pick, which they told Dame they was gonna flip to put pieces around him, which didn't happen at all. Dame did speak about not wanting to sit out those last few games at the end of the season. He was really disappointed about that, but he thought it was for the betterment of the team. And he even cited that he called it a calf injury, which is interesting. I'm surprised the league don't investigate that. But just looking at the timeline, seems like things got worse in September. And this is after, of course, the Charlotte Hornets, I'm not sure if Jordan was still the owner, of course, skipped out on Scoot Henderson, which was the obvious pick for his talent level. I think that caught the Blazers by surprise, and it pretty much cemented the rebuild. and Dame's exit. And this is without even Dame even knowing. It's just pretty much cemented it. You got to play like Scoot Henderson. He's marketable. Even if he can't bring the Blazers to like, I guess a deep playoff run or a championship, it don't matter. As long as he's marketable, they can make some money. They're going to move off of Dame. So let's check out the timeline right here with ChatGPT of what went down.
So on September 11th, he started showing up at the Trailblazers practice facility to work out. He went in for 8 days. He said Cronin did not address him once.
There's that passive aggressive thing that tends to happen in a lot of companies. When they're feeling a type of way about something, they don't really acknowledge it. We've seen it play out with the Warriors with the Draymond Green and Kevin Durant argument. Them never fully addressing it for the whole season, it kind of cemented Kevin Durant's decision to leave.
Lillard said, I went into the facility because I was still on the roster, and usually that time of the year is when team activities start to pick up as a group. I wasn't confident I would be moved, so I showed up to be in the mix. I didn't go there to cause any problems, Lillard continued.
I believe Lillard with that. He didn't really go there to cause any problems. Lillard seems like a genuine, loyal dude from Oakland, but he's in the business world, and he knows there's going to be a lot of politics with this playing out. And also for the image he, crafted for himself, the loyal company guy that doesn't want to go anywhere. He's not going to leave his city. He's got to stay on brand. He got to stay on code. But I don't think he gave the Blazers a lot of options with Miami. I mean, it's rumored that Miami only offered 3 first-round picks and Tyler Hero in a 3-way team trade. Honestly, for what the Bucks got back with Jrue Holiday, and they were able to flip him for more picks, more assets, and even those assets like Grant Williams and Brogdon, they could flip those again. So Dame and his agent definitely were kind of forced to look to other places outside of Miami because they pretty much were asset deprived compared to what other teams was going to offer.
I wasn't confident I would be moved, so I showed up to be in the mix. I didn't go there to cause any problems, Lillard continued. That's not my character. If they felt that way, it wasn't my intent. I was just trying to get acclimated, and everyone was happy to see me. Every single person except Joe. He never spoke to me. And when I noticed that, I made up in my mind that I'm not going out my way to speak to him.
So pretty much at that point, Dame and his agent were not speaking at all. That's very interesting. I believe, Dame is, like I said, he's softening his blow. He's playing a little Cold War tactics, but I believe him and his agent kind of interfered in some of these trade talks when Portland was clearly shopping him around to other places. I wouldn't be surprised if Dame and his agent behind the scenes let some of these teams know that he didn't want to be there. So they weren't going to trade a bunch of assets for him, especially with the new CBA coming into next year, where Dame is a high salary player and you just gave away a bunch of assets, and it's harder to make trades after that, especially Dame's salary is going to make you go closer to that luxury tax line that pretty much limits you on what you could trade on, what kind of free agency moves and pickups you could do. So the trades nowadays, they're going to get real tricky because of this. Teams are very scared of being $17 million over that luxury tax, especially with Dame's salary kicking in for the next few years. He's going to approach around $60 million. So teams have to be almost assured when they make these type of trades. So Portland at some point got upset and they kind of locked Dame and his agent out of conversations. They didn't speak for almost 2 weeks.
He never spoke to me. And when I noticed that, I made up in my mind that I'm not going out my way to speak to him. September 17th, Lillard and his agent went over a contingency plan for other viable alternative options that fit the team criteria they sought. Milwaukee and Brooklyn were the alternative targets.
Now, right there on September 17th, them having to go for a contingency plan, just introducing new teams that Dame possibly wants to go to, it kind of hints that they did kind of offer limited options to the Blazers on where to send them. So pretty much it looks like on September 17th, they got more realistic about their options. And also the NBA had to kind of intervene and be a mediator between Dame, his agent, and the Blazers. So this situation got real bad behind the scenes, as ChatGPT is going to further elaborate. Shout out to ChatGPT.
Milwaukee and Brooklyn were the alternative targets. On September 23rd, a Zoom meeting was organized by the NBA featuring league officials, Cronin, a team attorney, Lillard, Goodwin, and Ron Klempner, the general counsel for the National Basketball Players Association. The meeting was scheduled with the purpose of opening up the lines of communication between the Trailblazers and Lillard's camp. The session got volatile at certain junctures, with both sides expressing their trust issues with the other. At the end of the session, Cronin promised to do a better job communicating. In the days ahead, Cronin and Goodwin started communicating again.
So the fact that the league had to mediate, and even among those negotiations with the league being the middleman, things got crazy. So there was definitely a disconnect, but Dame just kind of overestimating his loyalty for that 11 seasons. And Dame kind of seen these signs play out way earlier in his career. Let's not forget LaMarcus Aldridge had left Portland to go to San Antonio because he understood that they couldn't really recruit guys to get there. And sometimes this franchise, they weren't the most craftiest franchise in setting up a team for ultimate success. As we've seen ever since the bubble season, the Portland Trailblazers, when they started getting rid of CJ and other guys, they were actually one of the most highest payroll teams in the league. They were actually set up to be in the luxury tax the next like 4 or 5 years. So that's the reason they started getting rid of CJ and other players, and then Dame still end up staying, still thinking that there's going to be some sort of rebuild, which is delusional. He has not seen that the whole time he was there. But when we take a step back and we really look at this, the Blazers really did Dame right. They sent him to a place where he can win. They got a lot of assets for Dame, and the type of assets they did get for Dame, they were able to flip. And even those assets that they flipped for Jrue Holiday, they could still flip again. And Miami just did not have that package.